So the topic of my talk today is Life of a Scientist, Purnima Sinha. So Purnima Sinha was one of the pioneering Indian women scientists from the pre-independence era. There have been quite a few trailblazers prior to her. For instance, Anna Mani, who was here at RRI, and Prajwal is going to talk about her. There was Bibha Chaudhuri, who was a pioneering cosmic ray physicist who had done outstanding work in the domain of physics of mesons, and Ashima Chatterjee, the distinguished chemist, who was the first Indian woman to get a doctorate in science from an Indian university. But I just wanted to say that I would like to restrict my canvas to Purnima Sinha, because I happen to know more about her life and work than these other pioneers, as she was my mother. So here is a book that is available at the Ramani Research Institute library on Purnima Sinha, written by Rajinder Singh and Suprakash Roy. It's called Clay, Craft, Music and Science, Purnima Sinha's Life. From the title, it is obvious that Purnima Sinha was not an average scientist, in the sense that she was as much of a scientist as an artist, and these two identities were interwoven through the first word of the title, clay. Clay played a common thread in her life. So this is just to give a sense of the timeline of Purnima Sinha's life. She was born in 1927 in Calcutta. On the year of independence, 1947, she got her BSc in physics from Scottish Church College, Calcutta University. It's interesting to note that at that time, Presidency College didn't allow women students. In 1950, she got her MSc in physics from Calcutta University. She was the only woman in a class of 60. Then subsequently, between 1951 and 1955, she did her PhD research in Science College under Professor S.N. Bose of Bose-Einstein statistics fame. In 1956, she got her formal PhD degree from Calcutta University, being the first woman to be awarded a doctorate in physics from Calcutta University. On the same year, she married Surajit Sinha, an anthropologist. Actually, he was a true intellectual partner. And subsequently, she worked at the Geological Survey of India in Calcutta, then at the Biophysics Lab at Stanford University, then at the Bose Institute, Calcutta, and for the longest period of her life, she had spent at CGCRI, the Central Glass and Ceramic Research Institute, from where she retired, and she passed away in Bangalore in 2015. So here is an outline of my talk. So I'll first give the family background of Purnima Sinha, then talk about her PhD work and how clay served as a common thread in her scientific and artistic creative pursuits. Then talk about her contribution to science outreach, then a brief analysis of the enabling factors in her life, and talk briefly about her influence on me and my choice of physics as a career and beyond, and conclude with a few remarks. So let's start with the family background. Purnima Sinha's life was significantly influenced by her extremely progressive-minded father, Naresh Sengupta, a distinguished legal scholar and a writer who had a deep commitment to women's education. So here is a picture of Naresh Sengupta. He was a doctorate of law. Purnima Sinha would have turned 95 this year. She was the youngest child. Her sisters, all of them were older than her, were accomplished in their fields, economics, chemistry, and mathematics. Purnima was the first woman PhD in physics from Calcutta University in 1956. Her sister Sushama, who was 24 years older than her, born in 1903, was the first woman to receive a master's degree in economics from Calcutta University, and sister Purnima, born in 1913, was the first woman to receive a master's degree with thesis in chemistry from Calcutta University. So here is a sort of a collage of Purnima Sinha's PhD work, which she received her PhD in 1956. Here is a picture of this one is the front page of her PhD thesis, X-ray and differential thermal analysis of Indian clays, which was submitted in November 1955, and she received her PhD in 1956. Just to give a perspective on her PhD work, Watson and Crick discovered the double helical structure of DNA using Rosalind Franklin's X-ray diffraction photograph in 1953. Raymond Gosling, a PhD student, had collaborated with Franklin in this matter. And as we all know that it's an iconic discovery in the history of physics, not just of physics, of history of science. This was during the period Purnima Sinha was working on her thesis project on X-ray analysis of clays in Calcutta. So here are a couple of images from her thesis. One of them is a set of X-ray diffraction photographs of Indian clay samples collected from different parts of India. One of them is from, for instance, from Santal Parganas. And another one, picture, is a set of curves, of differential thermal analysis curves of Indian clays. So her approach was the following. Her goal was to get an understanding of the structure of Indian clays samples from a comprehensive point of view. A combination of X-ray crystallography, differential thermal analysis, and chemical analysis. I must mention that in the process of doing her chemical analysis, she used to interact with Ashima Chatterjee, the distinguished chemist who was her senior. She did her PhD work under the guidance of the well-known physicist, Professor S.N. Bose, of Bose-Einstein statistics fame. Her PhD work was on X-ray crystallography of clay minerals. One of the remarkable aspects of her PhD was the building of the X-ray instrument from scratch using material from the World War II surplus gathered from the streets of Calcutta, now Kolkata. She received a scholarship from the Assam Oil Company during her PhD, which is of historical significance. It's an example of connection between basic science research and industry. She published her research work in the leading journal, Nature. Here is a snapshot from one of her papers in Nature, appearance of exothermic peak in the differential thermal curves of vermiculite. So as I had mentioned, clay was a common thread in her creative pursuits, both in science and art. Her PhD work was in the area of clay minerals, which was also the focus of her lifelong research at CGCRI. She had done work on the origin of life at Stanford, at the biophysics lab, and the point of view was that clay is a substrate for the origin of life. This dates back to Bernal's idea, and she pursued this line of inquiry. She was also a highly talented and skilled artist who had worked with clay extensively. This is one of her numerous artworks made out of clay, fired clay. This doesn't do justice to the scale of the work. This is about 6 feet by 2 feet. It's a mural which still continues to be there on the wall of a house in Shantiniketan. Now let's come to her contribution to science outreach. She had a deep commitment to science outreach and had written many popular articles and books in Bengali. The inspiration came from her mentor, S.N. Bose, who had a deep commitment in this regard. She was awarded the Gyanobigyan Puroshkar for science popularization in Bengali. This is a picture of the Gyanobigyan Puroshkar. Some of her books here in Bengali, Bigyan Sadhana Dharaye Satyendranath Bose, which is a Bengali biography written for the popular audience in Bengal, and Mono Jorobostu, which is a Bengali translation of Schrodinger's Mind and Matter. So just to give a brief analysis of the enabling factors in her life. There were a number of factors which enabled Purnima Sengupta Sinha to achieve her creative goals. An enabling family atmosphere, a very supportive and encouraging father. Her mother, Labanya Prabha, was also very supportive of her academic pursuits. A very empathetic and supportive PhD guide who was refreshingly free from any gender bias. This is S.N. Bose. An anthropologist life partner who was her intellectual companion and had been a source of encouragement. Her influence on me, she has been a major influence in my life, shaping my interest in scientific research and science outreach. We have written a collaborative popular science article in Bengali for Gyano Bigyan, and have also collaborated on cover designs. My mother and I have done that. I have enjoyed discussing DNA elasticity with her, a topic on which I have done research, and she has also had interest because of her background in biophysics. I had given her a book, Unraveling DNA, the Most Important Molecule of Life by Kamenetsky, to read, which she promptly started translating into Bengali, which indeed was a daring project to take up, given her failing eyesight in her later years. And it also contained a number of very state-of-the-art molecular biology terms, which she, first of all, she had to understand those terms and also translate it into Bengali. It was a really challenging job, and she did it. Both her daughters, Supurna Sinha, ISI Bangalore, and Supurna Sinha at RRI Bangalore, have chosen physics as their research focus, thanks to Purnima Sinha's enthusiasm for the subject. Here is a collage of a few images from her life. The top two pictures sort of capture her scientific life and her artistic life. So the picture on the left is an iconic one where Purnima Sinha is seen standing between Paul Dirac and S.N. Bose, the creators of the two fundamental statistics of identical particles in quantum mechanics. On the right is a picture of Purnima Sinha playing the tabla. This is also another place where she has crossed boundaries. She has entered a male domain with complete ease. She was often not even aware that she was a woman who was playing the tabla, and it is quite amazing. She learnt it from the great tabla guru, Gyan Prakash Ghosh. And the bottom layer are 3 cover designs made by her. Actually, the first one, Tribes and Indian Civilization, is a book written by her husband, Surajit Sinha, and this was a collaborative work with my mother. My mother and I jointly did the cover design. And the second one is Bigyan Sadhana Dharai Satyendranath Bose, which is a Bengali biography of Bose. And the third one is an amazingly detailed and analytical study called An Approach to the Study of Indian Music, where she had analyzed folk and tribal music from Barabhum, Purulia, where my father had done anthropological research. And she noticed that the folk music acts as a substrate for the Indian classical tradition. And this was a rigorous analysis, which reflected her scientific mind also. So just to conclude, Purnima Sinha was the first woman PhD in physics from Calcutta University. From the records, it appears that she was perhaps the first woman PhD in physics from an Indian university. She was fortunate to have grown up in an encouraging and enabling environment. She was involved in multiple pursuits: experimental physics, science popularization in Bengali, writing on science and society, fine arts, and music. This is indeed a crucial aspect that contributes towards a woman scientist's ability to achieve her creative goals. She had also served as a role model for her 2 daughters, both of them, Sukanya Sinha, ISI Bangalore, and Supurna Sinha, RRI Bangalore, are physicists. Now, I'm just going to end here. This is a picture that is very dear to me. This is my mother with a group of tribal children. And around the end of her life, she and her husband started an informal school called Milameshar Pathshala for the tribal children. And this also reflects something very special about her. Just professional achievement was not that satisfied her. She had a deep commitment to society. She felt the need to give something back to the society, and this photograph sort of captures that. And here are 3 links where you can read more about her. Lilavati's Daughters, there's an article by her, and there's a very nice article by Madhuri Katti in Life History India, Purnima Sinha, pioneering physicist, and the book Clay, Craft, Music and Science. That book is available here at RRI, in the RRI library. If you're interested, you can read it. Thank you for your attention.
These enablers, of course, were very valuable to her, as they are to very many women scientists who succeed or are able to practice science, come to the point where they can practice science in freedom. But I wanted to also ask you the question about what were the things that she were not enablers.
Obstacles. Yeah.
Obstacles.
Right.
What were the things that you remember that were obstacles in her time, which you perhaps can find similarities with, that those obstacles still remain today? Or were there some things that were just historically there and may have improved over time?
Yeah. For one of the things, for instance, like child care, the awareness that child care facilities are a necessity, that awareness has become much better now. So she had to, the arrangements she had to make to take care of us while she was working were much harder at that time. I think that would be one of the things that I remember. I think, at least, only in recent times that you see creches connected to institutes, and that's one of the things that I would say is